Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'll wait till we. Hello, good evening, and welcome. And if you recognize that quote, you are definitely in the right place. I'm ColinP.
And I'm Firefly Mk-1. Welcome to the show, everybody.
We are going to talk to you about remembering the days when TV was, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a short word, it's 4 letters. Good, that's it. When TV was good, when we actually had stuff to watch and enjoy. We're starting off our time tunnel in the 60s.
Carry on, Colin.
Okay, we're starting off with British TV because Firefly and I are both British, and that's what we remember. In his case, that's what he's seen in repeats. In my case, it's what I've actually remember. But we're starting, and then we're going to go on from there. So hopefully we'll be discussing what made those shows classic, what made them cult, what we enjoyed about them, what their influences were, and how they actually told stories, because stories seem to be something that don't get told quite so well these days, shall we say. So there was something you were wondering, wasn't there, Firefly, about a particular 60s show?
Yeah, Magic Roundabout. What the fucking hell was that about?
Very good question. I have no idea, but it was French, so that explains a lot.
I know it was French, but what drugs were they taking at the time when they come up with that concept?
I kind of suspect that a certain cannabinoid was possibly involved.
Well, we all know what Dylan was on, didn't we?
Yeah, definitely.
Anybody out there, if you ever heard of Jasper Carrot, listen to his take on the Magic Roundabout. You'll be laughing your heads off at it.
Yeah,
you find it on YouTube. You can't miss it.
Just listen to Jasper Carrot.
Yeah. Right. So, Magic Roundabout. Yeah, can't believe what a show that was. Excuse me. But anyway, one subject we are going to bring up: Thunderbirds. Just to kick it off. Any good stories you remember that from that, Colin?
All of them, no. Well, the one that stands out most for me for Thunderbirds itself is the semi-live action one. The live action in question being Baby Alligators.
Oh yes, they have problems with that.
Yeah, the storyline, for anybody that remembers it, they have basically it's as a scientific experiment. They're doing this old house in the Amazon, I think it is, and you have the experiments, shady characters. They're doing experiments. If anybody's ever read or is familiar with H.G. Wells's Food, because the food of the gods in question is actually it's in the book. It's a drug, a supplement that makes animals grow, and that's exactly what happens here. And as you may guess from the title, it gets spilt down the toilet into the swamps outside, and the alligators very, very quickly grow very, very big. The alligators in question actually are all babies, but because we're talking puppets here, you put baby alligators in, I think they're 1/12 scale. I think they're 12. This seems you've got an alligator that's literally the size of the house it's smashing down.
I know about that.
Yes.
Well, what I remember with the making of that episode, they had problems with the RSPCA because they were using cattle prods.
Oh, were they?
Yeah. So it's just it's a whole complicated thing, but we will bring up like Thunderbirds in the future stream. But the vaguest I remember of Thunderbirds is watching an episode called Terror in New York City, and that was the first on a video called Countdown to Disaster. And if I just bring it up for a minute, hold on a second, keep talking, Colin.
Terror in New York City was that the one that starts off with Thunderbird 2 being shot down?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Right. So, what I remember from that episode is seeing this. And judging by this looking at it, I thought, how in the hell did they do that? And then I learned more and more about the making and the model effects of it all.
Yeah.
Which is, it was unbelievable. I'm going to bring up something for the audience in a minute. Just give me a second because I've got to find the picture. Well, I've got a picture of some ugly bloke on here. No. Yes, Louise, it was a very different time, but it was a perfect time when writing was writing. So,
does anybody...
I'll just bring this up for a second. Sorry to interrupt. If you take a look here, look at the scale of that model to Derek Meddings wearing the black jeans trying to bend over.
Wow.
I know. And it's very iconic. Now, for anyone in the audience who's very interested, I'm collecting Lego. I build Lego. I don't like really collect it. And I'm planning on building my own Empire State Building model mover. Unfortunately, my computer went mad one day and I lost a lot of files and everything, and it drove me balmy. So when my computer decides to make up its mind if it's going into a program or not, typical, for everybody in the audience, I will be recreating this model. And I'll just stop my can for a minute because I've just got to go and get it. Keep talking, Colin.
Wow, that's fun. I have to admit, I jokingly said that for people of my generation that grew up, we knew the essential thing to get if you got into trouble to have was a walkie-talkie, because all you ever needed to do anywhere in the world if you got into trouble was you got on your walkie-talkie radio that had the power to reach into orbit, and you said 3 words, and the 3 magic words were calling international rescue.
Exactly.
It was that iconic a show.
Well, I'm going to stop the screen there. For everybody in the audience, I am building it.
Wow.
I am building it. But the problem is I lost the data files and I've got to build it from scratch. I've got a memory. Really annoying. Really, really annoying. Right. So, moving on from Thunderbirds, shall we talk, Captain Scarlet?
Yeah. Well, I mean, my abiding thing for the 60s was Jerry Anderson. So, yeah, I mean, for those that didn't recognise it, the theme tune we were using goes back one was for a show called Stingray, which Thunderbirds was the next scene after that, and after that was Captain Scarlet. Captain Scarlet was. You probably, I'm not sure if you get away with some of these things for kid shows these days. I honestly, I'm going to have to one of these days rewatch to see if it's actually true or if it's an urban myth that at the end of each episode they had a voiceover saying, Captain Scarlet is indestructible. You are not. Remember this and do not try to imitate him. Because Captain Scarlet was indestructible. He would be killed and he'd come back to life again afterwards. And that was the shtick. So interestingly, Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet in particular for me personally, is the only, not the best, it's the only show that's been remade in this recent, the last 10, 15 years habit of remaking old shows that is as good as the original.
Yes, I have to agree with you, Colin.
The Thunderbirds remake was okay, but the Thunderbirds remake was half an hour shows, which the original show was supposed to be, but it's only extended to an hour. And to my mind, the remake of the CGI remake of Thunderbirds, they changed a few characters around, which was okay, but they it was very much a children's show. Most of the sort of shows that we're going to be looking at that were children's shows didn't talk down to kids. They didn't make the kids the stars. They were good storytelling.
That's true. That's true.
You know, and as I said, I mean, for me personally, the CGI version of oh, that's nice, Louise. Nice.
One convention organisation. Oh, that is brilliant, Louise.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I really wish actually they'd redo it still. Big Finish. Okay, now let me think. 2000 Big Finish are doing storylines, and one of the ones I've just done from Anderson Entertainment is new. I think it's a new Stingray treatment of an old story.
Yes. Yeah. That was a book form. What they've done.
I was going to say, I don't know, because I know the guy that wrote. I know the author that wrote some Thunderbirds novels. I've got one or two of them, very, very thin ones. But I've not seen any. I don't remember seeing any Stingray ones, so I don't know if that was ever printed or what. But yeah, I mean, as I said, Captain Scarlet for me, the CGI.
Yeah, the thing is with the CGI, what I see, they absolutely got it right. But the problem was, you probably know about this, Colin. They put, as Jerry Anderson said, ITV took CGI Captain Scarlet and shoved it on a stupid Saturday morning bloody live kids show called Ministry of Mayhem.
Yeah,
cutting it up and ruined the entire thing, and they should never have done that.
Yeah, I mean, see, Captain Scarlet was. I'm trying to think. I have to think sequentially if Captain Scarlet came out before or after the remake of Battlestar Galactica. But Captain Scarlet is the one show where I had no problem with the one. But I think there were two characters were gender swapped. The main character, one of the main characters, Lieutenant Green, was gender swapped from male to female, and I believe Captain Ochre, one of the operatives, Captain, was gender swapped, but it wasn't one of the major. And the other thing they did is they changed all the vehicles. The vehicles from Jerry Anderson shows are the very definition of the word iconic.
That's true. That's true. All the models were iconic because it was the way the special effects director, Derek Meddings, and I'm going to do a tribute show to him in the future. He was a master of his craft. Mm-hmm. And going on to the James Bond films, even doing the model and special effects work for Superman, the first movie, he was a genius. He was a genius, and he will be forever remembered. So if you don't know the name, look it up on Google and check out Derek Meddings. So exactly. Carry on.
So that's the one thing they did, is the one thing they did with the Captain Scarlet one. All of the vehicles, none of the vehicles from the Puppet series were redesigned or anything. They were just completely new vehicles. So unfortunately, you didn't have the backward driving SPV, which must have been a bugger to drive, but had this great thing where if you were being pursued, you stopped, the door slid out, and the driver is actually facing backwards, so they were immediately facing the person behind that they can then shoot.
Yeah, apparently there was a story behind that because Jerry Anderson found out that in the future, well, in that era, all aeroplanes were going to be having their seats backwards, because apparently when a plane comes into crash landing, you're forced into your seat. So that was the idea at the time, but it never caught on, which was such a shame.
No, yeah, it's a shame.
Such a shame.
Good.
So
again, you think back to what aircraft were like in what the 90s. It's amazing. You think one of the things I love looking back, especially for the 60s, and not just. I mean, another prime example is the original series of Star Trek.
Yeah,
using what they thought the future was going to be. Their idea, if you look at the 50s and early 60s adverts for air travel, and then you look at Fireflash.
Yes.
Their idea of international air travel was massive great things that were basically ocean liners in the sky, in effect. Not long tubes that were just packed with bodies.
That's true.
I mean, can you imagine Ryanair doing Fireflash?
Oh, how cheap will that be? How cheap that will that be? Yeah.
And the other thing about that particular era in particular of Supercar, Captain Scarlet, Supercar, Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet, if you take the clues, and especially if you look at a lot of the expanded media, they were all set in the same world.
Yeah.
Most of them, I don't think many of the others were actually set. Most of them were set, set in their own universe, but there are connections between. The most obvious one is that, like Doctor Who before it, I'm trying to get my dates right here. Thunderbirds then went on and actually had cinema release movies. And the first one of those, they actually go to Mars on another iconic vessel, Zero X. And they have problems and they come back, etc. But Captain Scarlet and Captain Black go to Mars on a Zero X vehicle to investigate the Mysterons. So there's a connection there. You've also got in some of the expanded material, some of the spectrum in Thunderbirds in particular. There's a lot of stuff that you can get out of there. Going back, I mean, I've got 2 old episodes of the old American magazine Starlog, and it's got breakdowns, specials, and they've got semi-life stories of the characters, and there's at least one of them was an ex-World Aquanaut Security Patrol. What's the word for? Okay, mate. There was WASP, which was what the organisation that Stingray ran. The
WASP.
Go on.
WASP, but that's the name of it.
Yes, it was. Yeah. I'm not sure whether or not it was ever suggested that Gordon Tracy was ever actually in WASP.
It was all linked to in the profiles thanks to TV21.
Oh, right.
So, anyway, right. I've got to disappear for a couple of minutes. I'm bringing Arwyn onto the show. She's read the private chat to carry it on. So, Arwyn, can you hear us?
Hey, I can. How y'all doing?
We're all right. We're going to bring you on with us so we can have a proper round discussion.
All right.
I'm going to be back in a couple of minutes because I need the toilet. Okay.
Well, you go do your thing.
I think the letters Tango, Mike, and India come to mind there.
Now, let me ask you. Coming from being an American, obviously, I was not raised with British 60s TV, and the only 60s TV I got, of course, was majority of it was, of course, American TV.
Come on, let's be honest. Do you remember any of the 20th century? You're far too young to remember most of it.
I don't know. I remember a good bit.
this is what happens when you're brought up to be an English gentleman. You say things like that to ladies.
But what are some of your favorites? Like, if you could choose maybe 3 shows that you feel quintessentially really illustrate the best of British 60s TV, which would they be?
Ooh,
I know, loaded question, I realize, but I'm just, as an American, I'm curious.
yeah.
Because, like, if you said, okay, I want you to watch these 3 shows to really get a good idea of what 60s British TV was about, what would you recommend to me?
Odd enough, when you first started saying 60s, my first thought was Star Trek, but that's because that was an American import that had a lot of influence.
Right.
I would probably say certainly, actually, I would probably say maybe Stingray, probably Thunderbirds or Captain Scarlet as a child's it's a child's one. Another one I would recommend actually would be completely and utterly different thing. Would be That Was the Week That Was, which was a 1950s 60s. It was a political satire show with Peter Cook amongst other things. And it was literally political satire, and it took the rip out of British politicians in ways that were quite respectful, but also were satirical. You know, it's not just kids show. I mean, that's actually, I think That Was the Week That Was is actually on the thumbnail for the stream. Third one, oddly enough, I'm very odd within this sort of clique of fandom in that I was never a big fan of The Prisoner. A lot of people would say The Prisoner because it was insane.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. I've had that recommended to me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely The Prisoner would be a recommendation, not necessarily because for me personally, as I said, not one I particularly watched. The other one actually that I suspect is probably an example of I don't want to use the word pandering because that's a horrible word, but especially this and this, but of appealing to a transatlantic audience was The Champions. Because The Champions had 3 lead characters, 2 English and an American, one of our tame Americans. There were something like half a dozen American actors, male actors, who seemed between them to have every single American role in British TV sewn up. Because there weren't that many productions, cross-channel productions at the time. These days, you get a lot of Brits go over to America, make it big in American TV or Hollywood, and you get the other way around and get people come back. There wasn't the cross-channel traffic back in those days. If you think about it, I mean, we're talking 20 years after the end of World War II. 25 years after the end of World War II. So there's the communication, and as I say, obviously we get things coming. I mean, we had Bewitched, we had I Dream of Jeannie, we had Lucy Ball. We had these shows over here, and you had to wonder, but Stuart Damon. I was waffling when I was trying to remember the actor's name. You had Shane Rimmer. You had Ed Bishop. There are some others, but I can't regrettably remember all their names. But there were literally about half. Stephen, Doctor Who is too obvious. The thing with yes, I would say 60s Doctor Who certainly, but Doctor Who, I would say Doctor Who, classic British TV, end of story. You know, 60s and 70s and even into the 80s. Yeah, I mean, I don't tend to think of Doctor Who as a 60s thing because for me, Doctor Who is basically my entire childhood.
Right, can I interrupt for a second? Sorry, I'm coming back into the room. Stephen, we will be doing a special on Doctor Who in the future. Don't worry, we will be doing a great special on Doctor Who.
Oh, I should hope so too. So yeah, as I said, I mean, Firefly. You think I'm thinking Stuart Damon, Shane Rimmer, Ed Bishop. Can you think of any of the other token Americans we had?
Oh, yeah, right. I've got to bring it up. I've got to find their names because there's one guy. He was pretty famous. He ended up in a few films, and he played Captain Grey in Captain Scarlet, and he was the voice of what is his name? He was in the Thunderbirds film, Thunderbirds Are Go. He was the voice. Let me give me a second. And
let's not forget
Paul Maxwell. Paul Maxwell.
Oh yes, yep. You saying Thunderbirds? Let's not forget, of course, that here's a fact that amazes me. Right?
Paul Maxwell's Canadian, by the way.
Okay, fair enough.
So Shane Rimmer.
I say don't confuse the two. There are two confusions you should never ever make: a Canadian for an American, and a New Zealander for an Australian.
That's true.
Don't confuse the two; they're very different. And they will go and tell you so. Like I said, amazes me. The if you think about it, the five. I mean, the backstory to Thunderbirds is that Jeff Tracy was, I think, the first man to land on Mars. Jeff Tracy was an astronaut, retired, etc., etc. The five Tracy brothers are all named after pioneering American astronauts, even though it's a British TV series. But the thing that amazes me, every time I think back on this, and I was actually seriously aging myself here, but my sister and I were actually woken up to watch the a particular event that happened. Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Star Trek the original series, just all over, done, cancelled, dusted, consigned to the Museum of History.
Yep.
Except they came back before the Doctor managed to get the silence wiped out. Let's say that and make it a Doctor Who reference there. In other words, they were all done and dusted before the Apollo 11 mission.
Yep. Anyway, Colin, I don't like to interrupt. To our two people in the audience, would you like to come on the show? Because I'm willing to send out the StreamYard invite. Say yes in the chat if you want to come on.
I get a participation.
Get on talking, Colin.
You know, it's funny because I can remember as a little kid, my first British TV experience, and I don't know if they were 60s, if they were 70s, I have no idea. But we have a channel over here. It's called PBS. It's our public broadcasting system.
I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Was Monty Python.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that was my first experience with British TV, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Late 60s, going into the 70s, and ingenious in all their writing they did.
Yes, and I think that's what really started me on it, because it seemed so different. I mean, as a little kid, I'm watching these people with different accents, a different sense of humor, but it was a brilliant sense of humor. We had nothing, or at least I had not experienced anything like it on TV. So we grew up with Monty Python, just absolutely loved it.
Right, I'm gonna just look for something for a second based on Monty Python.
Yeah, there's something I think there's I'm not sure if it's a penguin or a duck.
That's a duck. I can't get rid of it until we start paying for it.
No, the thing is, that they say that comedy and truth and comedy and all the rest of it. I think Monty Python actually, as a not the show, but Monty Python led on to not the 9 o'clock news, and Monty Python gives rise to, I think, one of the best comments done in a sketch, but one of the best comments for offence. No, but best comments on the concept of taking offence, which I think it's done too easily these days. There's Monty Python made several films, one of which was ever so slightly controversial. But then again, we should always look on the bright side of life.
That's true.
Monty Python's Life of Brian, extremely controversial, came in for a lot of criticism from Mary Whitehouse, God rest her soul, whichever god she worshipped. Malcolm Muggeridge, again, God rest her soul. I said because it was perceived to be very anti-Christian. Of course, it wasn't. The best take on that I ever saw was, I mean, Monty Python spawned in many ways not the 9 o'clock news. Not the 9 o'clock news have a sketch where you've got Rowan Atkinson as an archbishop. Directors have in the corny versions of the film directors have. He's made a film called The General Synod's Life of Christ. Right? And there is a lot of complaints. In the sketch, it's an interview, and it's being he's being taken to criticised for blaspheming against Monty Python.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, excellent sketch. I mean, things like, look, it's filled with lines from the great book, like, "Oh no, not the comfy chair." Have these people forgotten how many times the sketches failed? I mean, these men died for us on stage, literally. And the final scene takes place in Torbay. Interruption. What's Torquay actually? Torquay, matters. Where the lead character is clipping literally hundreds of Spanish waiters around the head. I mean, John Cleese. I mean, even the initials, JC, John Cleese. Even the initials are the same. Really fantastic. But the bishop turns around, and the line I think that he comes out with that is gold is, look, I don't think that a film, a simple only film, is going to ruin anybody's truly held faith.
No, I agree.
I thought that, as I said, it's a comedy sketch, and it's intended all the way through, but at the same time, it is poking fun at the people, like the complaints that are coming about the Life of Brian movie. That's something. As I said, I mean, that's again why I would refer people back also to that was the week that was something that the British did superbly well. We had a tradition of comics and commentators coming out of our universities, Oxford and Cambridge in particular. God knows what comes out of universities these days, but they certainly don't seem to be particularly well educated or intelligent or thoughtful. Apologies to anybody in our audience who's actually attending university but yeah, we that's something that we had that came out, I think, in the 60s, 50s and into the 60s and on for a while there.
Anyway, Arwyn, you asked a question to Colin about what I consider the three.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I will be excluding the Holy Bible with Jerry Anderson because I know it too well. I know I love everything Jerry Anderson he did. I'm excluding Doctor Who because, I'm a massive Doctor Who fan. But the three shows I would pick is The Avengers, not what you think the actual 60s Avengers.
Okay.
John Peel and Miss Steed, or I say Kathy Gale and all.
Or to put it the other way round, to avoid gender swapping the characters, John Steed and Emma Peel.
Yeah, but I call her Miss Peel. I always call her Miss Peel. Big deal.
No,
Anyway,
she's a Dr. However.
The other one will be Monty Python. But the other one that I watched all the way through, because I know Colin didn't like it, The Prisoner. Because that was a complete mind fuck of how they did that story.
Did we remake that? Did the Americans remake that?
Yeah, it was remade for AMC, but it wasn't true. Like, it had the spirit to the original, and Patrick McGowan wanted nothing to do with it. They asked him to come onto it, and he goes, "Nope, I want nothing to do with it at all."
Oh.
But there's this round question, because you had a TV series called Danger Man. And there is a link between Danger Man and The Prisoner. And the question is, and it has been brought up in books and comics, was Danger Man, aka John Drake, number 6? They done it in comics, they did it in books, but nobody knew who that really was except Patrick McGowan, because he took it to his grave. He never revealed it.
Really?
Yeah. He would never ever say.
No.
May he rest in peace, but the man was a genius. That's all I can say. In his acting.
Well, I think Patrick McGowan holds the record for almost beating Columbo the most number of times. I think he guessed in 4 or 5 Columbo episodes or movies as different characters. I think.
Was he the murderer all the time?
I think he was. Yes, the one that comes to mind for me most. I think one of the early ones where he's an army general. But yeah, I think he was the murderer all the time, because that's because I think that's something I think that we never did in Britain. A lot of the American detective shows, you knew who did it almost from the start, and something like Columbo and the like, and you knew who did it, and the story was the chase between was the duel, if you like, between the detective and the British TV. You didn't, you don't find out to the last reel who the villain is. When the detective comes along and nicks them.
See, I like that.
Exactly.
I think I prefer that.
Yeah, exactly, Louise. You could always tell in anything like that, even if you didn't know who it was. Okay, yep, that's the murder, because that's the most famous guest star.
Right. Yeah. Well, Colin, let me ask you: was it The Prisoner that on B5, the character that Bester that he was modeled after? Was it one of the characters on The Prisoner, or am I misunderstanding that?
That salute that he gives with when it says "be seeing you," that was from The Prisoner. How much? Yeah, how far along the actual character, I don't know, but certainly that was an iconic line, and I believe also the actual salute was on The Prisoner. Yeah.
See, right there, that piqued my interest to watch it, because I love B5. That's like my sci-fi show, and to learn that there is a connection between that and The Prisoner, even no matter how small, but just to know that JMS took that iconic line and gave it to arguably one of the best antagonists in science fiction, not just TV, but overall. I mean, Bester is a great villain, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But to see that connection, I'm like, well, I need to check this out, because I love this show, and here's the creator of this show who loved that show enough to pay homage to it, even if it's in a small way. Maybe I had to check it out.
Yeah.
and see what's there. So it's kind of interesting how, a lot of these shows are connected. And what influences, that influence out of the 60s influenced a man making a 90s science fiction show that has no other connection.
I can think of one other 60s science fiction show that had a slight connection to Babylon 5, connection which apparently might actually be coming full circle, and which, in my personal opinion, might be the only possible hope of saving said 1960s science fiction show.
Which one?
Doctor Who. Doctor Who.
Of course.
JMS has said that he was influenced by British TV long-form storytelling, and is now coming back to the saying that apparently he may or may not be he apparently has now tweeted that Contact Has Been Made was a phrase he used, which I don't think Contact Has Been Made was Doctor Who, but it's from something. It's running around inside my head somewhere, a telepathic thing. But with the BBC, because he wants to take over BBC Doctor Who, and I say, I think that would be the only possible. That would be, if I might coin a phrase, our last best chance for Doctor Who to become good again.
I agree.
I agree with all.
I don't think anybody else could under the current BBC.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's what's happened to that iconic show is just, it's a travesty. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Especially ruining the entire history when they made that certain episode.
Oh,
How
God.
dare they? But we are not going to talk about that because we've got to keep it 1960s. And we've got the Valkyrie.
Hey, Purple.
Welcome, Purple. If you'd like to join, the StreamYard link is up the top if you can find it, or we send it out again. So, the Avengers, Miss Peel, John Steed, Kathy Gale, and how dare ITV4 never show the original black and white TV show of that is unbelievable. But with the Avengers, not the comic Avengers, or Marvel Avengers, I like that TV show because the way they played the story was unbelievable. And especially the flirtiness between John Steed and Emma Peel. I can't remember if it happened with Kathy Gale because they won't show the black and white versions. But it was absolutely brilliant. Right? And it literally, when I saw the last episode with Miss Peel, because I'm going to call her Miss Peel, when she left, I just felt heartbroken. I just felt a little heartbroken. But I didn't think much of Linda Fulson in the show.
No.
I never did.
No, I must have. But hold on a second. Let me get this right.
Yeah.
You're telling me that in the dark ages of the 1960s, long before Brie Larson had ever been born, there were
strong women,
characters who happened to be female and actually used that femininity.
Yes. Because
Wow.
the one thing about Miss Peel, she had sex appeal. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
But the thing is, whoever in the chat, if you catch an episode of the Avengers, give it a watch because you'll love it. You will absolutely love it. And especially with the amount of cars they went through.
Yeah, it's on my list. I'm compiling a list of things to watch, things to read.
If you ever get hold
that's one of them.
Black and white versions, because here's a trivia you didn't know about, Arwyn. When the Avengers began, it wasn't called the Avengers. It was called the Police Surgeon. And it starred Ian Hendry and Patrick Mooney. But Patrick Mooney was playing second fiddle. When Ian Hendry left, Patrick McGee, I'm getting my words tongue-tied. Hello, Catman. How can I be? They decided to give him the series to himself, and he did it. Right, and bringing in Kathy Gale, or I say Honor Blackman, aka Colin.
I'm not sure I can say that these days. I will
Oh,
probably
go
get
ahead. It's not a kid show, this.
lots of, lots and lots of Mrs. Slocum's pet.
Okay.
Okay, so nobody else remembers Mrs. Slocum and Are You Being Served? Pussy galore.
There you go. and she Honor Blackman left and went on to go in Goldfinger. And then when Diana Rigg left, right, she went on to go into On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Excuse me. So it is unbelievable, right? That two popular strong females from an iconic TV show go on to star in James Bond films, leaving Patrick Mooney alone. Then they ended the series. In the 70s one, we will be covering the new Avengers. And what happens? Patrick ended up in A View to a Kill later on.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
And they killed him off halfway through it. How dare they?
Oh no.
And of course, as we now know, Patrick Mooney was actually an alien who was responsible for the Cylons. He was actually actually an alien and possibly also the devil as Count Ibley. He was went on to the original Battlestar Galactica. He was the voice of the Imperious leader, and he was Count Ibley.
Count Ibley.
Who at one point is almost seems to be the devil. There's a two-part, and there's a really weird bit where they land on this. They're chasing him down. He's a very hypnotic character, and hopefully we'll do a. This will come up in the 70s US shows. But there's one bit where they do this weird thing, and you actually see what supposedly is real face, and they do this weird thing where they turn a film into negative, and the negative version isn't a negative version of Patrick Mooney. The negative version looks like something out of Quatermass in the Pit. It's the negative version is a non-human. You know, the suggestion there is that even though the mythological influences on the original Battlestar Galactica were Egyptian, there's certainly a bit of the Judeo-Christian devil in Ibley.
Okay, well, I didn't know that about that how that all played out.
Mm. Oh, I remember that magazine comic.
Oh shit, I'm on cam.
You are.
I thought you were getting ready to show us something.
Oh yeah.
Yes, everyone. I got this in a special box set that I got for Christmas. I've got the DVD, actually the Blu-rays with it.
Wow.
And I've even got the books knocking about somewhere. But the thing is, this is a collector's item in my heart. That's all I can say.
Yeah, wow.
That's all I can say.
All right, y'all. I have to ask you about one show that's on this list because being an American and having lived through this mess, you have just the name caught my eye. What is Trumpton? Have to tell me about that.
Oh,
Trumpton is
just because of the name.
Killed you, Barney McGrew. And I forgot the rest of the names. That's it.
Camberwick Green is a little village in the county of Trumpton.
Okay.
the one below it, Camberwick Green, you can see they were kids shows. I'm seriously impressed that we actually haven't got Andy Pandy there, but that would be really, really weird.
That's
Trying to
not
explain Andy Pandy will be really weird.
That's
But
1950s.
Was it? Oh, did it not make it into?
I think it went on into the 60s. I'm not too sure.
I watched it as a kid. I remember watching it, but they may have been repeats. They were kids TV shows. They were. They may have. I don't think I don't know if they started off being connected, but eventually Camberwick Green is a village, and it's Camberwick Green is in the county of Trumpton, and I've got a feeling there may have been
Hold on, I'm gonna stop the share button for a minute. If we get clipped for this, then whoever owns the rights to it, we're doing it as a tribute. We're doing it as a tribute. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. I'll bring it up for you, Arwyn. I'll bring it up.
Okay.
Actually, is okay. I've got the YouTube video here. No, I don't want a sodding advert. Okay, right. I've got the video. Give me a second. I'll bring this up. No, don't play, you stupid. Sometimes, everybody, you just want to take your PC and throw it out the window because it's unplayable. Right. I'm going to share this. I'm hoping the sound works. And here we go. Right. This is Camberwick Green opening.
Okay. Purple says pause it or talk over it. So bye, Gordon Murray.
Yep.
Yes, that is or is supposed to be
over
a music box in the background. That one, to be precise. If I'm right.
I think I had one kind of like that one time.
We don't know. Unless I forward it.
Okay, is some creepy gonna hop out of there?
Oh no.
Yeah, it's 70 from the magic roundabout.
Boing, time for bed. Definitely the way to end the stream. Boing, says everybody, time for bed.
It's opening.
Yeah.
I
Looks like Rowan Atkinson.
Who that is.
It's Mr. Bean.
It was that style of animation as well.
Did he just say dragon? What?
I didn't hear it.
Hey, it could
I
be,
loved the stop animation as a kid. I really did. I still appreciate it.
It could be worse. It could be Mr. Ben. The person who taught a generation of kids that it's okay to shoplift hats.
What? What?
I'm not sure if it was. Mr. Ben was another kids show, and it was a very clever idea.
Right. Okay, Colin. I don't want to. I don't want
okay.
to. BBC, please do not sue us for this. Do you remember life on Mars? Right?
Yeah.
I'm going to share this with you. Everybody at home, prepare yourself to piss yourself laughing. Here we go.
And we're back with the spinning music box.
It is. It's Sam Tyler from Life on Mars.
Wait for it, Colin. Wait for it. Oh,
I love the clothes. Because see, we can't hear the audio, or I
No.
can't. I
No,
can't.
I can't either.
I know how to share audio. And there we go. And that's where I got to end the clip, unfortunately.
That was a kid show?
Life on Mars was an actual live action TV show set. A guy goes back in time to the 1970s.
Oh,
They did an American
okay.
remake of it. But when they did that part, I couldn't stop laughing my head off.
Yeah, you're right. He's almost a spitting image of John Sim.
If they had the budget, they could have done an entire episode of Life on Mars set in Campbellwick Green. That would have been an absolute laugh.
Oh God!
Gotcha.
You just know that the English version of WandaVision would have done that. Don't you? You just know that an English version of WandaVision would have had to have an almost entire puppet episode.
Well, I'm going to bring it up. Stargate went one step better. Stargate went one step better.
Oh yes, yes.
Yeah. Especially when they walked through the gate and all their strings were cut.
Oh yeah, that was a fantastic episode. That was Stargate paying homage to Team America, paying homage to Jerry Anderson. I can't remember the idea of Mr. Ben was basically he was this city gem, and he walked along, and these days you would say he was goot stepping. The animation was a case of he's got two legs together. Next frame, his left leg is out 90 degrees. Then it's back on the ground. It was that level of animation. But the conceit, the storyline was a clever idea. It was he goes along and he discovers this costume shop, and he goes into this costume shop and this faintly, if I remember, this a faintly Arabic looking for the sort of Arabic that you tended to see in rather generic movies with the clothes and the and then the costume, but basically he goes through another door in the changing room, and when he goes through the door he goes into a story appropriate to that costume. So in one of them, for example, he gets dressed and he puts on a spaceman's suit. Yes, exactly, Stephen. I'll get to that. He gets in a spaceman's suit. He goes for the other door and he's on the moon, I think, or something like this. And he has a 5-10 minute adventure because it's a kids show. Lunchtime, and he goes in and he has his adventure, and then he comes back out again. And it's a nice child-friendly adventure. Or he tries on the cowboy uniform and he goes out and he's a cowboy. The thing is, at the end of each show, he returns the costume to the shopkeeper, and because at the end of the adventure, as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared. Every episode, the shopkeeper just suddenly turns up. Literally.
Yeah, he was in the back.
Yeah, but the phrase was as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared, and that's when Mr. Ben knows eventually going to come out. But he gives back the costume, and he then walks back the tune, and it's really back to his house. But he always kept the hat just to remind him. But he never seemed to pay for it.
Yeah.
Which has to say, the joke was, Mr. Ben, serial hat shoplifter.
Gotcha. Okay. I was
but
gonna say what?
I mean, again, if you can find them on YouTube or anything anywhere, they are.
Oh, I got to say something. There's this guy who's on YouTube and he takes the piss out of Trumpton, Captain Pugwash, and all this.
Oh.
if I get the link, I will bring it up in a minute. I just got to look for it.
I'm pretty
But
certain.
please watch it after the show, folks, because if you do, once you watch it, you'll be pissing yourself because there's a great take on it where they're taking a piss out of Mr. Ben, especially Postman Pat.
Oh dear, I'm pretty certain that Captain Pug was from 70s, not 60s.
Yeah, but all I can say is that it's absolutely was Mr. Ben like 70s.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was 60s or 70s. It may have been 70s, but certainly that vintage era when you had that sort of kids show before before kids TV became oh, what the hell is that Australian so Neighbours or whatever else it's on up there. Only on British kids TV could you enter a competition and win a cabbage. I think it was the right. But you could only win that on Friday, and it had to be 5 to 5. No,
Right.
Nobody else remembers that. That's good.
Right.
There's a catchphrase.
Okay,
again,
I've got the link here to this guy's channel. I'm going to put it in the comment section or chat section. Check it out afterwards, everybody. You'll be pissing yourself laughing once you watch this. For people who are offended, please don't watch it.
Okay.
That's the one, Louise. You got it. It was Friday. It's 5 to 5.
I'm on the wrong TV show.
Yes. Yes. It's Crackerjack.
Yeah. Now, one TV show, if anyone remembers this, Randall and Hopkirk Deceased.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't very popular, but I think it was. And I think it's still got a cult following.
Yeah.
And it's about two detectives. One dies and the other one survives. But the other detective who dies comes back as a spirit. And that guy, the detective who died and comes back as a spirit, was played by an actor named Kevin Cope. And he's been in a number of things, especially a Carry On film. So I'm going to leave it there because I don't know what to say about it anymore.
The premise sounds interesting.
Yeah. Well, it starts off with the credit titles. What I'm trying to start off with, and I can't remember the guy that named played Jeff Randall, but it starts off with Marty Hopkirk being killed. And then there's a ghost. Then there at his funeral, and there's an interesting dynamic between Randall and the rather lovely Annette Andre as Hopkirk's widow.
Yeah,
but you get this, and I think it's even at the grave. But basically, you then get Kenneth Cope turns up, and he's in white. All the way through, he's in a white suit, everything white, and it's only you can see me, Jeff.
How the hell do they keep that suit clean through the entire series? I don't know.
Lots and lots of dry cleaning bills and lots of suits, I suspect. Yeah, I mean, the thing. So often you've got the thing where he can actually go and see. He can't touch anything, if I remember right, but he can actually go and he can follow people, and then he can see things, and then he reports back. It's the basic, but it was a different idea for a buddy cop stroke detective show.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, excuse me. I have a question.
Go ahead, Arwyn.
And because I've noticed, the terminology is different between British and American shows. Like our series is the complete edition, if you will, and don't y'all call a series like what we would call a season?
Yes.
Okay. And I've noticed the number of episodes are usually a lot less on the British shows than they are on the American shows.
Well, the Avengers, there were so many episodes.
Okay.
per series.
That was my question. Has that always been the case, or is that something that's more modern?
It's a modern thing. I mean, you look back to again, for some reason we keep coming back to Doctor Who. There's a lot of fuss these days about how many years Jodie's done. I don't give a shit. She's done. I think I worked out at one point she's done less episodes than some of the classic Doctors did in a year. They went on for 40 weeks of the year.
Okay.
They went, and again, some of the other ones they went on, which really makes me laugh when some people these days say, "Oh, 6 years too many." What? Excuse me. Back in the day, they were doing 40 episodes, 40 weeks. They were filming or showing. The thing was on for 40 weeks a bloody year. And some others again, sure, especially I think if you got some things like what were there for the Prisoner, 12, 13 episodes of the Prisoner, something like that, I think. Hashtag
very nice.
I still respect him.
Hashtag Hartnell first.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of them, as I say, some of them were. Some got the Prisoner was only ever one season series, 1-1, and I think a lot of those were. As I said, I think 12 or 13, but I could be wrong for that for the Prisoner. But yeah, you're right. Certainly back in the 60s and the 70s, there were a lot more episodes per season than there seem to be these days.
And to be fair, it was with us too. Like, I know the Munster season 1 had something like 31 or 32 episodes. And look at even the American shows today. Sometimes we're lucky to get 10, 8 or 10. I know, Davy Jones.
Who's Davy
He came
Jones?
to become a monkey.
Exactly.
Right.
Here he came walking down the street. He got the funniest looks from everyone he met.
Exactly.
And he was a believer.
He was. He was a daydream believer.
That's true.
Yeah, actually, Dave Bob last night at Rambling's karaoke stream, he did Daydream Believer.
Oh, wow.
I was like, yes, we got the monkeys in the house. He did great.
In fact, the Monkeys was like a what do you call the American version to the Beatles, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that's what they wanted to play on that formula because the Beatles were so big, and they wanted that kind of the groovy foursome, and then of course it was a TV show, so there was the big controversy. Well, do they really play? Are they actors? Are they musicians? What are they? But it worked. It worked for a while.
They were probably the first manufactured band, first boy band, first manufactured band, I think.
I agree.
But yeah, as you said, it worked. They may not have come together organically as much, and they may have been absolutely superbly taken on in the Simpsons, in South Park, when the South Park boys get roped in to form a band, which ends up turning to be subliminal advertising for the US Navy. I'm still connecting to Ivan and the odds going around inside my head as I speak. But yeah, I think yes, they were. It worked, as you say. It was a formula that worked. They went on and they had some success.
Yeah, and Davy Jones was a huge draw for that. I think if they had not had, I mean, they were all perfectly cast, but if it had not been for him, I think in that that British charm, that America was so in love with, particularly during that time, I don't know that it would have done as good as it did. He was a huge draw, which, by the way, Purple Dave Bob promised that you and him would come on and do a duet one night. He promised us, so we're going to hold you to that.
Oh, what?
Yes.
What they were going to do?
No, he didn't. He was just like, "Well, y'all want me and Purple? We need to come on here and do a duet." And we're all like, "Yes, we got it. You said it. You need to print it now. You need to do it."
Sonny and Cher.
When did they start theirs? I can't remember.
No, I'm thinking Dave Bob
That
and
was-
Purple, I Got You, Babe. It's a duet.
Yes. Yeah. True.
The first one that comes to mind. Peters and Lee.
That would be cute.
If anybody remembers Peters and Lee, an English duo.
All right. Purple's on for it. Yay.
Excellent.
Good.
Well,
That'll be fantastic.
Screenshot this immediately. Clip and screenshot.
Go on. Someone screenshot it. Someone screenshot it.
Exactly.
It will not disappear.
Well, anyway, right. One we haven't talked about, The Saint.
Oh, yes.
I wish I could have that halo above my head right now.
Yeah, but in order to do that, you've almost also got to do the stick figure pose as well.
He's got it.
Okay, there we go. He's got it. Yes. It's interesting, isn't it? If you think, I mean, you could almost call the 60s the age of the secret agent.
That's true. That's true. Because if it wasn't for James Bond, none of all these secret agent shows would come out.
And we've got, but The Saint was. I mean, I used to read a lot of Leslie Charteris's Saint books, the books, and I think they actually go back to the 30s, or they're set in something in the 30s. And there is in some of the books, there's an implication that he's working for either working for or with a generally unspecified organization, probably a private organization rather than a secret service. But you know what you got on there. You got Danger Man, you've got the Saint, you've got the Prisoner on there, you've got the Champions. I'm just thinking of Anam Adamant to a degree. At Man in a Suitcase, Department S. That's what, 7 shows there that are basically secret agent shows.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
the Avengers was more like a secret agent show.
Yeah, the Avengers. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, there was one of these nice ones that actually came over somewhat and occasionally over almost into the edge of the sci-fi genre as well.
That's true.
The sci-fi influence, excuse me for me taking sci-fi influences rather than full-on sci-fi. But yeah, you know, the Cybernauts coming to mind, and there's a few other bits and pieces in there as well, and some of them.
Right, trivia for everybody out there, Arwyn, if you can hear us.
Mm-hmm.
The Cybernauts were in the Avengers, was like a trilogy. You had them in the New Avengers, and you had two of them in the 1960s Avengers. And apparently, with the Cybernauts, they were like a tribute to the Cybermen from Doctor Who.
Okay.
And trivia has it that the Cybernaut episode was written by the guy who created Cybermen. Kit Pedler.
That is very cool.
Yeah. Because apparently back in the 60s, if anyone knows this, a lot of writers were going back and forth between these shows. So you had like a writer on the TV show Thunderbirds of Captain Scarlet, and he ends up writing for an episode of Doctor Who. or probably an episode of Danger Man or the same. You know, there was a lot of writers playing about during them days.
Yeah, I would imagine that the talent pool that was networking was a lot smaller than it is now.
Yeah, the thing is, it's the same with most of the comedy during them days. You had some writers who wrote comedy. Now, did you know the creator of the Daleks, right? Terry Nation, he wrote for a guy named Tony Hancock. And Tony Hancock sacked Terry Nation, and after that, Terry Nation went on to create the Daleks.
Really?
So, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So that's the thing. They played a lot about with writers, because there's two other writers I will bring up in the 70s shows that were very popular, and that was oh Christ, I just got to turn it off. One was named Ian LaFrancis, I think. I just got to type it on Google. Oh yes, to everybody in the chat, if you want to tip us, feel free to tip us through Stream Elements. You find the link in the description box. Anything else anyone wants to bring up while I look for this?
Just, I agree with Louise. She says the number of writers might have increased, but I don't think the talent pool has. I agree with that.
That is a good point, Louise. That is a good point,
Absolutely.
Louise.
I think if anything, we're losing on both sides of the pond. I think we're losing a lot of that because, you know, it's becoming more agenda driven than it is strictly talent and good story driven. And, you know, in the 60s, it was all about the story. It was all about getting that out and getting that, you know, perfect and making that the main focus.
Yeah.
Here we are. Right, here we are. It's Dick Clement and Ian LaFrance. Yeah, Prenay.
Ian LaFrenne.
They were absolutely excellent writers.
Mm.
And they will be brought up in the 70s show when we get round to it in the future.
Yeah. I think I'll be tempted to say that the talent pool has dried up to a very, very, very small talent puddle.
Yeah. Exactly.
And most of the scripts have been flushed down the toilet by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Well, I look at shows, and I know this. It's a 50 shows, and it did work its way into the very early 60s. But look at I Love Lucy. You had three writers, three main writers that wrote every single episode, and those episodes. I mean, and that is, I can honestly say, aside from science fiction or fantasy, I Love Lucy is my favorite TV show. I can watch that constantly and as many times as I've seen it. And I mean, I can quote some of the shows.
Forward to that when we get round to doing the American 60s cult classics.
Yes, that will be in there. That will definitely.
Unfortunately, everyone in the chat, I will not be in attendance. I'll be in the background trying to sort out everything on here.
But that's a good example of if you have good writers, your show is going to succeed.
Yeah. And we mustn't forget, of course, that I must admit, I Love Lucy. That sort of sitcom didn't really wasn't necessarily my cup of tea per se. But I'm not going to have a bad word against her, because without Lucille Ball, we wouldn't have Desilu Studios. Without Desilu Studios, we wouldn't have Star Trek. So,
but that's the charm of it, is that you don't have to be into a show or even into the genre to appreciate good writing and appreciate a good story.
Well done, Mark. Well done, Mark.
Here.
Well done, Mark, on that. Nice one.
Definitely agree with that one.
Welcome to the show.
Oh God, reality show too.
You made me laugh. Was that one of the first things that reality, and I'm saying this with the proverbial air quotes, TV shows was reality TV. Something we could. I mean, I'm sure back when I've never watched an episode of Big Brother, but I remember when it first came out, the storyline was. Or we can all relate to a TV show where you live in the house, and if you win the house. I'm sure I'm sure that's reality for all of us, you know. So it's reality TV is one of the biggest misnomers in the world, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Or I mean, that sort of I mean, you've got I mean, a lot of we had going back to the. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm pretty certain it's probably the same in the States, but certainly in here, shows we haven't got on the list have become iconic shows. But we had shows like oh, my brain's completely switched off now. We had talent shows, and we had good talent shows.
You mean like variety shows?
No, I mean talent shows.
Actual talent show. Oh, okay.
Actually, I mean, like you've now. I mean, you've got, I think, American Idol.
America's Got Talent, but y'all have Britain's Got Talent.
Yeah, we have Britain's Got Talent, but we
Britain's
had
Got Talent, but they cancelled the X Factor. Thank God.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, but we had, but before we had those ones, and where from the little bits that I've seen, the main thing seems to be, okay, how nasty can the judges be? Yeah. And I mean, although one of the really classic bits I think is major bits is when you see whichever pair of clones it was that presented Britain's Got Talent, or whichever the one was that Simon Cowell was on, when you get Susan Boyle. I mean, I'm not showing cine shows, but talking really when you get this, you can see these faces, and you get this dowdy, large built lady, Simon figure, and then she opens her mouth, and Simon Cowell's jaw drops.
Oh my God!
I mean, that lady's voice, I mean, but we used to have them, and my brain is completely switched off as to what the one that Huey Green used to present was. Opportunity Knocks. That's it.
Yeah.
And out of these shows, the judges, as I recall them, and we're talking about 40, 50 years maybe for some of these shows. They weren't as nasty. You had party presented. But again, you got some people came out of those who went on to have really, really solid careers. Not necessarily become blazing stars, but but I had good, solid, long careers. You got the likes of Jim Davidson. I think I'm right in saying that the Paul Daniels, magician, also came out, and I think Jasper Carrot may have come out of one of those shows as well. Had a lot of people that came out and had some really good. But I suspect also it's a case of that there wasn't the